is called People Training for Good Dogs, and Melissa Berryman is with us, former animal control officer. She is a national dog bite consultant who works with rescue groups, dog owners, and bite victims, and she's also designed and teaches a safety and liability class for dog owners. And the book is called People Training for Good Dogs, What Breeders Don't Tell You and Animal Trainers Don't Teach. Oh, Melissa, this is so long overdue. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
And you're right here in Massachusetts.
Yes, I'm on the Cape.
I know. How fabulous. Okay. I have to share with you all that I know what it's like to have a dog that people immediately run from you when you show up with the dog. I had a black Chow for 13 and a half years. So the first thing people want to do is put a muzzle on her. That was number one, which I never allowed them to do. But when she was a puppy, I had an incident with a lawyer from a very prestigious group of lawyers. And she was literally 10 weeks old, Melissa. 10 weeks old. And she was at her biting stages, where she was nibbling at everything.
Yep.
And this man walked in the room and had a terrible fear of dogs, and he froze, and she ran right over to him, and she, sat down and just looked up at him with those big, beautiful brown eyes of hers, and she would look like a little black bear, and she had the purple tongue, and she was just a little furball at that point.
Right, they're adorable.
They were adorable. And she nibbled at his leg and then ran away and played this little game with him.
Mm-hmm.
He called the animal officer, called the police. You have no idea what happened. Went to the emergency room. When the animal control officer came and said she's going to have to be quarantined for 90 days and went through this whole thing. She was a puppy. And I learned very early on about biting and dogs. And so I said, oh, my God, maybe she is a biter. When the animal control officer walked in, he said, where's Killer?
Oh.
And, he looked at her and he said, where's Killer? So, but that really taught me. And they said, one more bite and she can be put under. So for 13 and a half years, I was very cognizant of what I had to do to control her behavior, and it started me off on the right foot with her.
Mm-hmm. You bring up so many of the issues that I wanted to help people deal with this book, because we're so unaware of the legal ramifications of having dogs, and the fact that they're still property, and the fact that people have this expectation that all dogs should be happy-go-lucky, love everybody, and just want to please. And so you get people who look at a dog, like you said, and they have an expectation that when they see a pit bull, the pit bull just wants to kill them.
Exactly.
And so they change their behavior, and that influences what the dog does.
And also, tell us, is it true that when you tie dogs up, I don't believe that dogs should be tied up in a yard all day long?
I would rather have the dog with somebody, and if not, under the control of somebody who's even aware of what they're doing outside, to be inside, because they feel vulnerable. And one of the issues about tying, fencing, putting them in the car, and even being in your house is it sets up a protective response that we all have, and that's called fight or flight. And so if the animal feels in danger and can't flee, it'll fight.
Yeah, but that, I have to say now, and I have a little boyfriend now, and he's a golden doodle. He's not mine, but he's like mine. And his temperament is so different than hers that, he's the cutest, sweetest fluff dog. I mean, he's just very sweet. But one of the things that I learned very early on is that dogs need to be dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a dog, like a Chow, like a pit bull, like a shepherd, that people have these feelings about them already, preconceived feelings, you really need to be aware and understand that, it's a different flavor.
What I love to clue people in on is that you have a lot of power about those interactions. And one of the neat tools that we have at our disposal is our voice. So when dogs are seeing somebody new, they want to know whether you're friend, foe, or prey by how you act. And so one of the things I love people to do when they're meeting a new dog is to tap your leg like you're wagging your tail, no sticking a hand out or a fist out for the dog to smell, because they don't do that themselves, and act happy and friendly, regardless of the breed of dog. You're going to tap your leg, the side of your leg, like you're wagging a tail. That invites the dog to see if it wants to be touched by a stranger. And a lot of times people think, hey, it's okay, dogs should love me. I can just go out and touch whatever I want. And think about it from our point of view. If some stranger came up and touched you, you'd be upset. So we want to allow the dogs to make the decision. But if you have a dog like a Chow that you know that somebody might have a negative reaction to, I lay it on thick with how wonderful this animal is. So when we're meeting and greeting new folks, I just use a high-pitched voice and I get all excited like I'm meeting a long-lost friend. So that calms my dog down. It also calms the person down and their dog down, because we want to set the tone of the encounter to be one of friends.
Right, right. So basically what you're saying is that it's not the dogs that are bad, it's how the dogs and the training that happens. So when you get a dog, what's the first thing besides picking up? Everyone should pick up Melissa's book, and it's MelissaBerryman.com is the website, People Training for Good Dogs. What's the first thing you should be doing?
Well, the first thing we should be doing is accepting that we have to learn a lot about handling, and to realize that there's a lot of conditioning that human beings have been under that's very confusing to dogs. So part of my classes is learning that language, learning how to better communicate. And the thinking and the mindset in society is that the dog needs to be trained. But if we compare it with horses, if you're going to learn how to ride a horse, you don't call a horse trainer. You call a riding instructor.
Exactly.
So I call myself a dog handling instructor. When I'm touching and working with the dog, I'm training it. But other than that, I'm really teaching people skills and to be able to deal with the day-to-day. You know, most people can teach their dog to sit, stay down, come and heel. But it's the encounters with strangers. It's the leash handling techniques. It's the voice that they need to give the dog and the feedback that they really have no concept that they're really key to that. That's what really dictates the relationship with your dogs.
And so before you run out and buy a dog, check out Melissa's website, check out her book, and Melissa, you have to come back, because we just got started and we're already out of time.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, we need to get you back again, because this is so important. There are so many stories that we hear about children and babies being, attacked, and we need to talk about what's
unnecessary.
Going on. Absolutely. People training for good dogs, what breeders don't tell you and trainers don't teach. Melissa Berryman, thank you so much. We will be back in just a moment. It's Frankie.